Questions are the answer when you're in professional sales. And look, every profession, they practice their skills, right? Amateurs wing it. You're a sales professional. You should be practicing this stuff, having a formula, and saying, this is the information I want to get from a prospective customer, and here's the questions I'm going to ask to get that information. Now, I used to have a sales manager, very wise mentor, and one of the things he said was to the sales team is he said, let's play a game. On your next sales meeting, the person who walks away with the most information wins. Now, why did he do that? Because he knew most salespeople go into a meeting with a prospect and they talk, and they spend the majority of their time talking. And then they come out, and if they download on a regular basis with their sales manager, they call the sales manager and they say, just had a great meeting with so-and-so company. And he says, great, tell me about it. Oh, well, we talked for 45 minutes. They liked everything I said. And then the sales manager starts asking questions. Oh, okay, well, what type of budget do they have set aside for this? Don't know, didn't ask that question. Didn't get into that, it wasn't the right time. Oh, okay. What's the timeline? What's the deadline when they want to make their decision by? How many competitors are we bidding against? Who are the other people in their company that are going to be involved in making this decision? See where I'm going with this? And then you start to find out real quickly that the salesperson doesn't have the answer to critical questions, such as what's going to be the determining factors, what's going to be the most important criteria for them to come to the conclusion of which company they choose or which vendor they choose. These are all things that the only way, they're not going to offer them up usually. We've got to ask the right questions in order to get those answers. So the most information wins. I want to talk a little bit about the power of questions and what it means. So first of all, differentiation. Differentiating yourself from the competition. Control. When you ask the right questions, you're in control of the conversation. Think about people that ask questions. A lawyer in a courtroom, an interrogator at a police station, right? They're asking questions and they're in control of the situation. An interviewer in a prospective employee-employer situation. Credibility is the other thing that comes out of this. By asking the right questions, you increase your credibility with the prospective buyer, or prospective customer that you're talking about. Think about when you went to the doctor last time. You didn't sit in the doctor's office and have him come in and say, oh, let me tell you about Prozac. Okay, it's the greatest thing in the world. I've got half my patients on it. It does this, this, and this. No, he didn't do that. What did he do? He came in and he says, tell me where it hurts. How long has it been like that? What have you been doing differently that might have caused it, right? What have you tried to get rid of it that didn't work? So these type of questions, when you get to the end of that meeting, some of those questions the doctors ask you, go, wow, I'm glad he thought. I didn't think about that, you know? He's asking really good questions that are relevant to the topic or to the problem or issue that I have. And my confidence goes up in this doctor. The credibility goes up, right? So that, in fact, it's always like that. It's like that with you too. In fact, otherwise you wouldn't be taking the prescription then after he's diagnosed you and says, here's what I believe based on what you've told me and what my observations are. And here's what I suggest. This is the prescription, right? And then you're willing to take that. So if that doctor came in likewise, and so the questions have to be smart questions, right? For example, if that doctor came in and said, Nick, tell me what kind of car are you driving? What kind of TV shows do you watch at night? You ever watch the news? This has nothing to do with the problem or the issue that I'm facing, and my trust in him would go down very quickly. In fact, I'd feel like he's wasting my time, right? This is the problem with some people. They think by asking certain questions, I mean, they even start the meeting or the phone call when they're first contacting the prospect with, hey, Ted, this is Nick White. How you doing? How's the weather out there in Seattle? Nobody cares. You're wasting their time. You think you're being polite. You think you're connecting with the person, and the person's going, oh no, it's an unsolicited phone call. I got a salesperson on the line. This is not what I need right now. He's going to take forever. All right, so, back to this example of it's got to be the right questions. It's got to be smart questions. In the rapport section or the connections, you're trying to find connection in the beginning of the meeting, right? And we talk about this in a different section, so I'll just touch on it right now. But How do you do that? Well, how would you do it if you were at a social setting with a lot of other people around you, or you were at a bar, say, which hopefully you're not trying to pick people up at a bar because it's a terrible place to do it, I can only imagine. But what would you do if you saw somebody that you were attracted to, you're a single person of the opposite gender, and you want to go now talk with them, right? What do you do when you go up there? Well, you introduce yourself, and then you start asking questions, right? Now, if you're asking questions like, hey, you come here often? What's your sign? These things that I can almost not say with a straight face that are from the 60s and the 70s, right? If you're saying things like that nowadays, you're not going to be very successful, okay? This is the problem with some of the sales techniques that salespeople are using nowadays, like ABC, always be closing, right? This comes from Dale Carnegie, Zig Ziglar. Zig Ziglar is no longer with us. Dale Carnegie was born in the 1800s, I think 1888. And not to take anything away from them, pioneers, great people in their time. But look, our culture is changing. People are changing. Our values are changing. So if you're using techniques from way back then, like for example, ABC, always be closing, it's so manipulative. Salespeople have a credibility issue with the general population because they think, just like a politician will say and do anything to get elected or to get the vote, they believe that the perception is, in the general perception of the majority of the people out there, is that a salesperson will say or do anything to get the sale, whether it's a right fit or not. So look, knowledge is power if it's applied. So knowing this about your prospective customers, you need to recognize that, and you need to work on building credibility. Don't just assume that it's there already. Now, with the customers you're working with, it's probably there because you've proven yourself. But for the people that you're just meeting with, don't assume that you have any credibility with them. Work on building that. And one of the ways you're going to do that is through good questioning techniques, okay? When they see you always be closing, if I could show you a way where you could save this, wouldn't you? And you're asking these close-ended questions to get them to say yes, yes, yes during the meeting. So at the end, you can say, okay, would you like to do business? Look, they see that. They see that you're pushing them. They see that you're manipulating them. It's such old sales techniques, and they're crossing their arm and they're resisting you, and they're just not buying it. So they know what you're doing. People are smarter than that now. The goal of our sales system is to make people self-discover. Self-discovery is the most powerful tool in selling. And what I'm trying to do is ask a series of questions so that I set up then for me to be able to answer the prospect's questions about my company or service in a way that matters to them, so that they self-discover by the end of the meeting that this product or service that I'm selling will bring value to them or their company, and they'll want to do business. That makes the close at the very end of the sale or the meeting so easy when the light bulbs goes on for them, and I say, so Ted, what would you like to do next? And he says, well, I'm sure I want to do this, I want to do that, right? Because he's self-discovered already. This requires discipline on your part as a salesperson, and it requires restraint. What do I mean by that? It's like a lawyer in a courtroom. He knows the answer to the question before he asks it, but he can't say it. He's got to get the person in the witness box to say it. So he's got to know what the answer is that he wants, and then he's got to craft the question in a way. Look, if the lawyer just said, I know you were at this place and this a time, and it doesn't matter. He's just the attorney. It doesn't mean anything. Likewise, when I'm selling on my company, I like to ask my customer, what do you think this would do for you? And is this something that's important to you or not? I don't know your business, but here's what we do, and here's what my customers have told me, the benefits of doing business with us. I don't know your business. I'm not sure if any of that is important to you, okay? And when the customer is now telling me back, yes, it is, because I see where you would do this or that for my company, or for me, solve these problems and bring this value. Now who's selling, me or him? Of course he is, because he's telling me all the things that he believes this is going to do for him, and I know now he gets it, he understands. I could have told him, and when I left, it wouldn't have meant so much. But by me asking these type of self-discovery questions, I bring him to this place of realization that my product or service is right for them. Or maybe it's not right. I'd rather find that out. We both agree and then part ways. So anyway, back to this benefits of asking questions. So after self-discovery, the next benefit is pattern interrupt. So this is so powerful because of the lack of credibility with salespeople. In the minds, again, and that doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. We're guilty by association, right? Because we're a salesperson. It doesn't matter what your business card says. If your title says territory manager or client relationship manager or president of the company, it doesn't matter. If you're meeting with a prospective customer, let's just call it what it is. They know you're there for the purpose to sell them. You want to do business with them, right? So the pattern is when people answer questions automatically, without any thought behind them. I don't want that. I want to get that out of the way. And some examples of this. So, for example, my wife and I, I love going to Cheesecake Factory to eat and Outback Steakhouse. Well, there's two things that my wife likes at both of those restaurants, if you've ever been there, and it's the brown bread that they bring you before the meal, right? That brown bread, it's got a little bit of a sweet taste to it, and it's really good. So she loves it. I like it too. Let's say, for example, when this happened before, we go to Outback Steakhouse, right? And they bring us the bread, but instead of being warm and fresh like it normally is, it's cold, it's a little bit hard, it's stale, right? So we kind of cut it up, try it, we're not real happy with it, but then later our salad comes, our appetizer comes, our meal comes, our entree comes, maybe we have dessert or not. And at some point during the end of this meal, as it's winding down, the manager comes by and the manager says, "Hey, how you folks doing tonight? How was everything?" What do we say? "Fine. Yeah, everything's good, thanks." Okay, a very polite, automatic, we all do it, all right? Now think about if that question was crafted a little bit differently. What if that question by the manager was asked this way? "Hey folks, thanks for coming in tonight. I'm the manager, Bob. Hey, I'm always interested in providing our guests with good customer service and everything. If there was one thing we could have done different tonight to make your meal more enjoyable, what would it be?" Think of the different response I would have said, probably just the bread. Normally it's fresh. If you guys would have brought out some nice hot fresh bread, that would have made it better, but everything else was fine. Now what's great about that is the manager's getting really valid information that he can use to improve his process and give a better customer experience, which is going to lead to better sales, right? Think about another automatic response. When you're in a store, so I just had this. I stopped in a hardware store. I was looking for something. I probably had 3 workers come up to me with the vest on, that you normally see in the hardware store. And they said, "Can I help you find anything?" Or they said, "You finding everything okay?" Or they said, "Can I help you?" And what did I say? "No, I'm just looking." We all do it. It's an automatic response that we don't even have to think about that says, "I'm just looking." Okay? And maybe that's not you, but most customers respond that way. That's why I think it was Lowe's started this. When you come into their store, they don't ask that question anymore. They run into you in the aisle and they say, "What project you working on today?" Or "What are you working on today?" Because guess what? If I didn't come to a store just to look. I came to a store with a certain idea in my mind of what I'm looking for or what I want to buy, right? And if I'm in a Lowe's, chances are, or a Home Depot, chances are I'm working on a project. There's something I'm working on today, and that's why I'm there. I'm not buying something over the internet, but I came into their store to purchase something. So a great example of ways to avoid that pattern interrupt, and when they say, "What are you working on today?" "Oh, well, it's a shelf. It's above my fireplace, but I want to do this. I've got a mantle there, but I want to do this. I'm not sure what kind of mounting brackets I can use." And now that person's able to lead me to the right area in the hardware department to get the right product that I'm looking for. So, all right, let me give you a couple examples of some powerful sales questions that you can ask that most salespeople aren't incorporating into their meetings with prospective customers. And one example is when a prospect tells me, "We've been working with this company for years and we're pretty happy with their service." Okay, How do you answer? What do? You don't want to insult their decision, and at the same time, you don't want to argue with them. So here's a great way to answer that and put it into a question. I always start with softening statements, nurturing statements, or I set up the question in a statement first, and then I go into the question. So I say, Bob, I appreciate you telling me this. Look, nobody's perfect. Even we're not perfect. If you could change just one thing about your current supplier, what would it be? And let him think about that. That requires some thought, right? And it's gonna be quality, service, or price, right? And he's gonna say, I'm gonna probably say this. Okay, why did you pick that? So see how the conversation, it's open-ended questions so that I can better see if there's any opportunity for me to do business. Look, the truth of the matter is if their product's the same as my product, I better be finding some pain on the pain gauge, because if there's no pain, there's no reason for change. A little bit of change, a little bit of pain, a little bit of reason for change. A lot of pain, and you find somebody who's in a big, they have a lot of reasons to change, right? And sometimes you're just lucky and you come into those situations at the right time, and you end up getting the sale right away with very little effort on your part, maybe even very little skill on your part. So anyway, that's one example of nobody's perfect. If you could change one thing, what would it be? The next thing is, and I'll set this up, is if the customer says to you, your price is too high, okay? After you've been through the whole meeting, and again, he understands the value that you're gonna bring, he understands the advantages of your product or service and what it's gonna do for them, and this is an automated response that buyers just think they have to do to try to beat you up on price and get the lowest price possible. It's just something that they do naturally, right? When they're meeting with a salesperson. So what do you say at that point? Well, let me know where I need to be, and guys, if you're a salesperson of mine and you come back to me and say, here's what we got to do. If we just lower the price a little bit, okay, we're going to have a serious discussion about your future in the company. But what I like to do to pattern interrupt and make the buyer think is I say, okay, Bob, if our price was the same as what you're currently buying, what would you do? And when he comes back and says, well, I'd buy your product. I'd buy from you. I'm confused. Why would you do that? Because you've got this feature that they don't have, you've got that feature, and it's going to do this for me, and it's going to do that for me, it's going to save us time, money, increase our productivity, whatever it is, the benefits of your product. If he now is explaining that back to you, that means he got it during the meeting. He understands it. You don't need to sell anymore. In fact, he's selling at this point. But here's the follow-up question to that pattern interrupt question is, okay, I get it, and I agree with you. You'll see all those benefits and everything. But so is what you're saying is those benefits are important to you, but you're just not willing to pay for them? See, we know that when we're buying an automobile, for example, which everybody has experience purchasing, we know that certain features and benefits cost more, right? We all know that inherently. So I've got to pattern interrupt him to get him to that point. So these things are important to you, but you're not willing to pay for them, okay? So then it opens up the conversation to go further into, well, what is he willing to pay for them? The next thing is in the beginning of the meeting. So after I've set up the meeting and thanked him for the time, and I did my terms and conditions of the meeting so that we're both on the same page and understand the goal of the meeting, I might say to him, okay, Bob, so when I called you and I asked you for this meeting and explained a little bit about what we do, what were you hoping to accomplish today? What were you hoping to accomplish in our meeting? What would you like to get out of this? So again, I'm going to give you the structure, put it into a language and into words and word choices that you're comfortable with, as long as we're moving the ball down the field in the right direction. And this is a great question. It's similar to the question that I ask when I'm calling on the phone and I've set up the meeting and we've agreed to the date and time and all that stuff. And I say, so Bob, out of the 3 pains that I mentioned that we solve for customers just to help me prepare for the meeting, which of those is most important to you that you'd like to talk the most about? And then here's the follow-up question to that before we hang up. All right, great. Before we go, is there anything else I should know? And this is where you find out from them, well, yeah, we've got a budget of $500,000 and we're not going to spend more than that. Or we're in the middle of a 3-year contract right now and it's not due for another 2 years or a year and a half. Whatever it is, you'd be surprised how much information you get from the prospect when you ask that question. But most salespeople are not asking that question. It's not hard. It just takes practice. If you want to grow, get outside your comfort zone, constantly use new skills and new techniques that are going to help you get better results. So that's one of the takeaways from this. I hope you got. Some of the other things are just go in with a list of questions that you've developed based on what kind of information that you want to get from the prospect. I don't want unuseful information. I want information that's going to help me, again, move the ball down the field. Information that's going to help me customize my presentation, my proposal, to the things that are most important to the prospect, not to things that I just assume are most important to the prospect, right? So the next thing is just practice that, and then I've got some more videos I'm uploading right now. One of them is the most powerful sales questions that salespeople aren't asking. Okay, so I hope this was helpful to you, and I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks.